right, happy Monday, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Wisconsin Weather Experts. It's gorgeous here in Milwaukee and across much of the state of Wisconsin. We are talking almost some summer-like warmth today away from Lake Michigan.
It's very unusual, right? We typically sprinkle a day or two of that in the forecast, but we've been dealing with a prolonged period of very nice weather here across our area of the state.
Yeah, been about 6 days since we've had any precip here in the Milwaukee area. So earlier in the month of May, we did have at least a little bit. But speaking of precipitation, we have a lot to talk about in this show, but we are actually going to take a look back 35 years ago from this past Saturday. Maybe you remember this. In fact, if you're a lifelong Milwaukee resident, I guarantee you remember this. May 10th, 1990. This is video footage of a big snowstorm. In fact, our latest snowstorm on record hitting southeast Wisconsin. You can see that it accumulated. It was a very heavy, wet snow. I think the most notable from all of the notes that I've looked at from this storm system was the fact that all of the trees were in bloom and so many branches fell. There were power outages. It was absolutely a messy, messy storm. And to put it, humbly, if you will, it was actually kind of a surprise storm to meteorologists at that time. This started off as rain as well as thunderstorms. So it's interesting when you look back at climate reports, which I have Vince's old binder right here, Vince Candela, which we'll chat about in a second. You can see the notes throughout the area of thunderstorm activity. So climate reports showing thunderstorm and snow. So it was one after the other. Just really incredible reports there. But take a look at this graphic. This shows where some of the heaviest snowfall fell. Once again, this was May 10th, 1990. So this Saturday marked 35 years from that event. There were inland spots that picked up 8 inches worth of snowfall, places like Pewaukee as well as Hartford. Now, Milwaukee at the airport picked up just over 3 inches, but still 3 inches of very heavy, wet snow is still enough to do some damage and certainly still cause some power outages. There were schools closed. Could you imagine this time in May? Schools closed because of snow. I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen, but
you're thinking about getting out for summer at that point, not thinking of winter.
Goodness, today, 2 days later, everyone's wearing shorts to school. But again, it was the latest snowstorm on record, so really incredible. And I referenced Vince's binder, Chief Meteorologist Vince Candela. He's been retired for years now, but he has taken for years and years and years notes on all of our climate data, and we still do it today as well. But this is the 1990 binder, and we have a couple different cities because we used to have weather observers who would send Vince information. So not only do we have Milwaukee stuff, we also have a few other. Look at it, says surprise snowstorm.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Right here, blizzard-like conditions because the wind was gusting almost 50 miles per hour. We've got Bristol on here just for fun. Windy, snowy. Man. Let's see, let's go to Brookfield. It's highlighted, so you know it's important here. Blizzard is written down here from whoever the observer was in Brookfield. Bad storm, power outages, blizzard-like conditions. Same. Cedarburg says thunderstorm, doesn't even say snow, but they likely saw at least a little bit. So it just kind of piques your memory a little bit from such a crazy time frame. And
that vast difference, I mean, you said about 3 inches or give or take in the Milwaukee area, and then inland 8 inches. I mean, that's a huge span. And we're pretty used to seeing, the difference from events bringing areas near the lake, sometimes less snow, areas inland more snow, but it's that time of year where we aren't necessarily thinking again of snow. We're thinking of the warmer months, but that just goes to show that these binders that Vince filled out and we are still filling out are very crucial because we can easily access those past historical meteorological data that we have and kind of further analyze events and where we were in the years past. So as we are moving forward, though, we're not thinking about snow. A lot of areas have been thinking about rain.
Rain out east. So let's move on. We're actually going over to New York right now. Look at this video. Rain has been a big story out east from numerous very slow-moving storm systems, but Fast forward 35 years to now, May 10th on Saturday. Spotsburg dealing with a lot of heavy rainfall and flooding.
Yeah.
This was the view from New Paltz, New York, and many other spots along the East Coast felt the same. Just a shout out to Christian Miller for sending this video in of some of that low-lying flooding.
Yeah, and some of that flooding actually was the consistent cut-off lows that we were talking about that just brought heavy rain to areas of New England for a big portion of this, and really that just contributed to more flooding there and also flooding in areas of the south.
Yeah, absolutely.
So flooding definitely not a good thing, but some other areas saw some rain falling from the sky, but a little bit different. Not necessarily flooding here. You're taking a look at the Tampa Bay Rays. The fans that were out there, and of course you see them running across the field quickly with the tarp. With their temporary and roofless new stadium, they got their first rain delay ever on Saturday. So thanks to Matt Leach, a digital Fox producer, for sharing this video. Of course, they're quick out there. No one fell under the tarp of this one, but running across to try to keep that dirt dry. So when they do actually go back and start the game again, they won't have muddy or slippery turf to run on.
And first ever, because remember, Tropicana Field, before the hurricane, had that cover, had that roof. They're like here in the Brewers. They don't really deal with rain delays, which is convenient, but they're in this new temporary home, so they got a taste of rain delays as some of those showers and thunderstorms were in the vicinity.
Hey, you know what? At least the game could still go on.
Yes.
And I love that we have the roof here. Another reason why Milwaukee's great to see sports during the summer, because it doesn't matter if it's raining or storming, the game still goes on.
Absolutely. And believe it or not, we're still talking rain today out east. Let's dive into our regional forecast here. There are still plenty of flood headlines across the East Coast. In fact, that little red box looks to be a flash flood warning in portions of North Carolina. So you can see Virginia, the Carolinas, down to southern Florida. You can see portions of Alabama, all that green flash flood, or I should say flood watches and warnings. So there is a, speaking of slow moving storm system, still ongoing down towards the south. It's producing pretty heavy rain and some thunderstorm activity across parts of Florida. And you can just see it extending as far north as Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and as far west as Missouri into Arkansas, with maybe a little bit of break in between there for parts of the Gulf Coast states. But this is another one of those, cut off low pressure systems, but also it's actually going to be doing that same thing that we talked about yesterday, retrograding a little bit for tomorrow. It's actually going to push westward a little bit, northwestward to be exact, meaning Tuesday, it's going to impact us here in Wisconsin. We're eventually going to see some rain, or I should say cloud cover, moving in overnight tonight, maybe even later on this evening, just a few more clouds in the sky here across southern Wisconsin, and then some scattered rain showers once again as this makes its way up towards the northwest. Now, broadening the view a little bit more of the U.S., right in between, there is still plenty of sunshine for the central U.S. and then another storm system coming together across the Pacific Northwest. Now, we will see another storm system for Thursday, specifically Thursday evening. We're already eyeing a chance for some severe thunderstorms along a cold front. Now, it's only Monday. It's a ways away. We'll just have to watch to see how this storm actually develops, but all eyes already on late in the week as we are highlighted from the Storm Prediction Center under a chance for some strong or severe thunderstorms. And you'll notice this is a decent area too, extending from Wisconsin across the lake into Michigan State, all the way down through about the mid-Mississippi Valley. So we'll watch that storm system very closely again in the days ahead. But for tomorrow, it's really just some off and on rain, maybe a few rumbles of thunder, not really looking at anything huge for Tuesday. But going through the rest of today, notice how those clouds and even the rain get a little bit closer later on this evening. So starting in southern Wisconsin, waking up Tuesday morning, we could start to see a few of those scattered showers as this, rotates around that low pressure system. So coming in off of the lake, just some scattered rain showers at times Tuesday. Now there is the slight chance we end up seeing a few more pop-up showers and storms later Wednesday. Notice throughout the afternoon, you can see a few little specks of green, but Wednesday I think we'll have a bit more dry time than what we'll see on Tuesday. still going to keep the slight chance in, really once again across southern Wisconsin. Now, skipping ahead to Thursday, this is our exclusive Fox model. It goes out a little bit more than, some of our other models. So this is pinpointing maybe right around dinner time for this line right along that cold front, or maybe out ahead of the cold front to push on through very quickly through our area. But it's going to likely be one of those squall line situations. So we could see some stronger wind out of this at the very least, heavy rainfall. Again, it's really a wait and see type event right now, but we always know when we're highlighted by that Storm Prediction Center this early in advance, it's at least something to watch. Another big story weather-wise is the warmth, especially out west. Yesterday's high temperatures out west were in the 80s, and look at Minneapolis. They actually reached a record high temperature of 90 degrees yesterday. Very early to have warmth like that, and they've had it consecutively, as Lisa mentioned here, over the last couple of days. Now, forecast highs for our region today, still very warm. In fact, those 80s slide eastward. So Rhinelander could be warmer than those of us in Milwaukee. Of course, Milwaukee cooler because of the lake breeze, but we're still going to hit into the 70s, but really impressive warmth and borderline records too, even across the state of Wisconsin. The national view of temperatures showing parts of the Dakotas in the middle and upper 90s, so nearing triple digits for high temperatures today. And you can see that extends down into the southwest. Even Denver, high temperature in the upper 80s. Cooler, of course, out east because that's where that storm system is located right now. The Dakotas will likely hit some record high temperatures today. You'll notice the records for today in the low 90s. Same with the southwest, even parts of Texas. So it's going to be a warm one to say the very least. Also, with some of the warmth and dry conditions and a little bit of wind, we talked about this over the weekend and late last week, fire danger has returned across parts of the upper plains and even to northern parts of Wisconsin as well. You can see a handful of red flag warnings. So if you are going to be, maybe doing some grilling in, the days ahead, it's just something to keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah. I definitely know a lot of people, too, are getting out there with their kiddos to maybe have a little bit of a bonfire, roasting some s'mores, some, nice brats over the fire. Just as Stephanie mentioned, as great as it is to be outside, to do some grilling in those outdoor activities, just be very mindful, especially if you're igniting any fires. Again, we are very accustomed now to wildfires being a thing over the United States the past several years, and that easily could spread. And we really just don't want to ignite anything like that here in the state of Wisconsin.
And you did mention, too, over the weekend that we did have a little bit of wildfire smoke,
We did.
too,
We had some wildfire smoke, yes, from Canada. And a front that moved through brought it near the surface. Now, typically this time of year, too, we also watch where those wildfires ignite. That can limit not only our sky conditions, making it hazy, but under certain circumstances, that smoke can come down to the surface and impact the air quality, which is something we covered last week.
Yes.
Well, here we seem to have some pleasant days ahead. It wasn't so pleasant in other areas of the United States. We had video footage. This was from Georgia. We also have some footage coming up shortly from Tennessee. A rare magnitude 4.1 earthquake hit near Knoxville, Tennessee, Saturday morning just after 9 a.m. Wow. It struck 15 miles south of Maryville, Tennessee, according to the U.S. Geological Survey, and had a depth of about 15 miles. It was felt up to 100 miles away in Atlanta, Georgia. So viewers provided these videos you're seeing here. A lot of people nowadays have cameras inside their homes. So if you could hear the audio, there's actually things shaking in the background, but a lot of the objects shaking inside the house, people felt. At least 40,000 people felt the quake, and yes, fortunately, there were not any other reports of damage or injuries, so that's always a good thing, but we seem to be reporting on a lot more earthquakes recently, too.
Yeah.
That's one of those things, I don't know if there's a trend every so often.
Yeah.
Here's that other video quickly, which we can see in Tennessee.
Oh,
notice
my
that
goodness.
plant. Yeah, so it's not just the camera shaking, but the plants are shaking, and I don't think it's going to feel good like you're in a massage chair or anything.
No.
This is
very different.
Very different than that. Just as people may think it looks cool, it is definitely not a sight you'd want to see in your home. And even afterwards, that can still cause cracks in the foundation, cracks in the drywall. So you might not see that damage right away. We just hope that everyone continues to stay safe in some of those areas that are impacted.
Yeah, absolutely. And crazy to see how it was felt, in that video from Georgia, too.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
Wow. I know they're not too far from each other, but still.
Big
All
difference
right.
apart. Well, we got a lot more coming up. I'm excited.
We do. A lot more to talk about when it comes to the sky.
Yes.
Stick around. Here's a live look outside. I believe this is Manitowoc.
I think it looks like Manitowoc.
Yeah, looking good.
We
We'll
all
be back.
look the same with the blue skies.
We do. I agree.
Nice day. here is if it did indeed land in the ocean, it wasn't going to impact anyone on the ground. And if it didn't land in the ocean, then maybe it burned up as it came into our orbit and down through the atmosphere. Either way, though, it definitely had a nice trip. Although it was a failed mission to Venus, still something cool we're able to track.
Yeah, and it's really cool just to, go back and look to see how long the process even is of these. I mean, we'll call them trips, maybe experiments. It's crazy.
It really is. And again, very old footage that we had of that. So from the 1970s, it's amazing how long it was in space.
Yeah, you got that. Okay, well, speaking of space, it was a great weekend to get out, do some stargazing, and that'll continue in the days ahead. Chief Meteorologist Tom Locks tells you where to look and when.
Well, we haven't talked about space for a while, and it's the perfect time to talk about it because, number one, we have the full flower moon in our sky tonight. Now, officially, it's at its fullest point really right about now, but it's going to appear full to us over the next couple of days. So our eye can't really discern whether it's completely full or 99% visible. So it's still going to appear to us that the moon is full here for the next couple of nights. Should be beautiful for that as long as skies can stay clear around here. And then we also have a couple of planets in our evening sky, particularly Jupiter and Mars in the western sky. So Jupiter will be earlier on in the evening. Mars will be mid to late evening in the western sky. Now, something else we haven't talked about in a while, the International Space Station flyover. If you haven't seen one of these before, it is awesome, and I highly encourage you to check it out. We had one last night, and we're going to have another one on Tuesday night. Now, the time frame here, 9:24 to 9:30 p.m., starting in the western sky and then flying to the northeastern sky. It's going to be a little lower on the horizon, though, at a maximum height of 30 degrees. So that's going to be a little bit above the horizon, but kind of at its lowest visible point for us above the horizon. So it's again going to be a bit low, but should be visible again as long as our skies stay clear. But always fun to look up, right? A lot of cool things here in our night sky.
Well, we have a lot to look at tonight. We're going to dig a little bit further into that full moon, which, as Tom mentioned, is at its peak fullness right now, but it's called the flower moon. No, not because it's going to look like a flower, but it is going to at least resemble the flowers that are out there this time of year. Now, typically a supermoon is when we have the moon closer to Earth, but this is going to be a micro moon. So it's going to be the farthest point from Earth, meaning it's going to be smaller by about 13 to 14% and dimmer by about 27 to 30%. Are you going to see a huge difference? Probably not. It still is going to be a really spectacular sight if you want to go out and see it. So for us here locally, it's going to rise at 7:22 p.m. The name comes from the early spring bloom of the pink moss wildflowers. It's a micromoon. So again, the furthest part from the Earth, which will make it appear slightly smaller and slightly dimmer.
I love her. I love it, I should say. We love to see those beautiful full moons. So also send your pictures in if you manage to capture it. We'll take a quick break and we will talk about some cute little animals after. Welcome back, everybody. Take a look at this little cutie. A kitten in Chandler, Arizona, just outside of Phoenix, may owe its life to a firefighter.
Aww.
The local hero was able to rescue the small animal. It fell 30 feet down a storm drain. A business owner heard the kitten crying, called for help, and this video, as you can see, shows the fire department in Chandler hoisting the kitten with a rope into the parking lot. The cat has been adopted now too, which is great news. Its name is Riley.
Aww.
So thankful.
Well, from one rescue to another, we have Fresno Animal Services in Central California, which were also busy, but this time it wasn't a kitten. It was a pelican. Pelicans are normally beach dwellers, and this one was found more than 70 miles inland. There's no word on why it was so far from home, but they at least paired this one with Wildlife Services to bring it back to where it should be.
There you go. Two great stories to end WWE on this Monday. We'll see you tomorrow at noon.